Begin our news review. I'm pleased to say this morning I'm joined by editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, it's Charlotte Griffiths, and global affairs correspondent at the iPaper, it's Molly Blackwell. Great to have you with us today. Let's kick off, shall we, with the Sunday Telegraph. And parents must do more to stop bad behaviour, according to the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. Tell me more, Charlotte.
Well, Bridget's saying, listen, it's back to school next week and make sure your kids go back on best behaviour. And I don't know about you, Leah, but my kids at this point in the summer holidays, it's beyond feral. And they ask for K-pop Demon Hunters every 5 minutes.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was very resolutely saying, no, we must do crafts and no K-pop. And now I'm just like, just have it on all day, just rolling.
On loop. You're not alone, Charlotte.
It's a bit hectoring to tell us to send our kids back on best behaviour because the summer holidays are hard for parents. But there's also a serious message here, which is that she's saying that white working class kids are really suffering. There's a huge gap and they are not doing well, and they're 5 times higher. It's 5 times more likely to be suspended. And then what she's saying is later in life, they're more likely to earn up to £10,000 less on their salaries and get suspended more, and, you know, and on it goes. So there's a bit of a dual message here, which is persuading parents to get their kids to behave more, but also acknowledging that the state needs to restore faith in schools and how they work and going to school, and to break the link between background and success.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, Molly? This is also figures from the National Behaviour Survey showing that 1 in 10 white children on free school meals were suspended in that 2023-24 academic year, feeding into what Charlotte's saying, that actually then their prospects in adulthood are severely damaged there. The onus being on parents, essentially, which we all play our role. But obviously, going back into those school gates, it's out of the hands of parents, it's teachers, it's friends. There's a lot that feeds into behaviour more than just the message that you should behave well.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, and I think this is why, you know, I understand the message, you know, encouraging people to kind of, you know, do their best with their kids, but I don't think people don't know that already. I don't think anybody seeks out badly behaved children, and I'm not sure most parents feel they need to be told to try and make their kids behave well. I think socially we kind of accept that's the thing to do. I think it's, you know, there's so much that puts pressure on parents. Cost of living crisis, childcare, which is extortionate and puts many people off becoming parents in the first place. You think if the government is really serious about improving the lot for parents and giving kids the best possible sort of start in life, maybe rather than tell them, you know, get your kids off K-pop Demon Hunters, maybe we look at childcare costs or, you know, school class sizes, things like that. That's not to say the government aren't looking at those things and that they aren't ongoing as well. But I'm not sure necessarily that this is what every parent wants to be reading on their Sunday just before the school return.
Yeah, riled me up a bit. It's interesting that you said about class sizes, though, because just one other thing to say is that this piece says that in a 30-minute class, up to 7 minutes are spent disciplining children because the classes are so big and unruly, and teachers just have a really difficult job. And I know as 3 children, a mother of 3 children, looking after 3 is hard. I mean, how do they look after 30?
Yeah, and then what obviously this doesn't touch on is how kids are feeling generally about going back to school from all ages. You know, I have a year 1, a year 3, and, you know, the news that I'm getting from the Boleto household is they're not really looking forward to going back. And that might be echoed across the country. It's certainly echoed in this story that we have on the age of anxiety in the Times, Molly, and it's the impact, isn't it, of social media, the impact of post-COVID, and because we know that impacted everyone from toddlers up to university age when we're talking about young people, and of course pornography. So it's a huge issue that necessarily being talked about from the government at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So sort of a theme here, but looking at the next age group up, really. So this is focused on teens, and it's a really alarming read, actually. So some research from the Sunday Times finds that almost 3/4 of girls aged 16 and 17 are so anxious that they are skipping school, which is worrying on so many levels. Firstly, that 33% of the girls surveyed say they experience anxiety, but then for 70% of them say it's been so severe that they're actually taking time off school, which then is obviously hitting educational outcomes, kind of social development, all those sorts of things, is really worrying. So there's a few different issues which, as you've mentioned, really feed in together to kind of create this quite toxic outlook for them. One of them being COVID, which obviously was so difficult for so many kids, really bad for social development, and forced people online and to get to grips with working predominantly and socialising predominantly in an online way, which I think can be quite hard to come back from. And I think, you know, that then feeds into the over-reliance on social media when there isn't an in-person kind of space to engage in. That becomes your dominant mode of communication. And there are so many issues with body image, with bullying, and social media firms really lagging behind and regulation lagging behind in terms of keeping these spaces safe, because it's so difficult to legislate around a technology which moves as fast as some of these sites do.
Yeah, that's going to be a big issue, I think, the next big hot potato for the government, for schools, for teachers who already feel overwhelmed with the load that they're having to deal with, Charlotte. It's going to be such a big issue.
Yeah, and still with the cyberbullying. This piece addresses the kind of boys will be boys attitude in schools. Can you imagine catcalling in the, I don't know, 80s? And the catcalling now, I mean, it's backed up by porn on their phones, cyberbullying. It's a whole different universe they live in, and it's absolutely terrifying and really frightening for girls. And it seems to be the girls that suffer so badly from this anxiety. You know, there's a lot of sort of sexualised online content behind a lot of it, which is, I find, very frightening as the mother of girls.
Yeah, and it's when you give children a mobile phone with the internet that's just in their pocket, you know.
Yeah. Also, I think the pressure that everything you post, I think a lot of kids don't think about this understandably because they're young, stays there forever. You know, you can delete it, but these sites have endless kind of ways of backtracking and being able to kind of see archived materials. The idea that, you know, when you were that small, everything you might say in a comment, every photo you might post, you might never be able to erase. I think that's quite terrifying. And I think it can also really increase the intensity of kind of bullying or any cyber-related issues, because it doesn't go.
Yeah, it doesn't stop in that classroom environment. They take it home.
It'd be good if they really could ban phones, because then at least you know when you're sending your child to school, that's a few hours where they won't be on their phone.
Well, it's effective on so many levels, isn't it? Because it's free. They don't have to plough any money into it. And then you'll have a whole group of parents that will say, look, we're behind you.
Yeah,
we can do this. So I don't know. We'll see. They've said at this stage that they're not going to do that. Let's move on to the Express, shall we? Asylum seekers in 1 in 10 new homes. This is an accusation from the Conservatives?
Yes, well, yeah, the Conservatives have sort of drummed this up, and they're tapping into this, obviously, the hotel debate, you know, and what they're saying is, if you take them all out of the hotels, the asylum seekers, where will they go? And 1 in 10 of these new homes built since Labour came into power, they're saying, have gone to asylum seekers. So it's just sparking more debate about where does everyone go? Will they be evenly distributed around the country, and are there enough houses for them all?
I want you to move on to, I found it really interesting. It's the front page of The Telegraph, and it's echoing, on some levels, Donald Trump, the US President, drill, baby, drill. But it's coming from the leader of the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, because what she's saying, essentially, is that she would continue to drill as much oil as she could from the North Sea.
I think you're right to make the comparison with the Donald Trump speech, and that's actually in the second paragraph of this article, which tells you how important it is. I think everybody here is recognising that these political announcements, as we see with Farage as well, are not in a vacuum, and a lot of them are making nods, and with Labour, to be fair, as well, are making nods towards maybe appealing to Donald Trump or trying to curry a little bit of favour. This has obviously been a huge hot potato in the US, and I think some of this is the Conservatives trying to bring it in to make it sort of part of their image in potentially having a kind of environmental culture war thing here in the UK. I do wonder who they're trying to appeal to, though, because you know, you can chase reform all you like, but you're probably not going to out-reform reform. And this is going to turn off a lot of young voters who are very pro the environment. You know, 2024, last year, was the hottest year on record. The UN has explicitly said, please don't do any more exploration for oil and gas. And you've got the leader of the opposition coming out and saying, this is the direction of travel. So it feels like a very kind of politically minded, potentially strategic issue. And I'd be interested to know, you know, what the kind of scientific consensus is on whether or not that's a good idea.
Let's move on to, this is the Mail, Charlotte,
Yeah.
your paper. The King's Garden, what's happening to it?
I love this story because it starts off by saying the King's rosebush-lined East Terrace garden was designed to be enjoyed by royals and not commoners. So there's a big garden in Windsor Castle that was designed and commoners were not even allowed to look at it because they were too common.
Look away, look away.
But what Charles has realised is actually if you're landing in Heathrow, and there's about to be another runway, possibly, you can see this beautiful garden. So what he's trying to do is, I think, more or less monetise it and say, make it very, very beautiful, allow people to see it in the flesh. The Queen actually opened the garden up only 5 years ago, but before that it was banned from being viewed. But now you can see it from your plane.
There. Thank you for your company. We'll see you after the break.
Hear that